You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there, my name is Philip Heidson and today is Friday, February 21st, 2025.
6.
For the longest time, many of you have been asking when the Art of Procurement is going to start hosting in-person events. And I'll be honest, as a bootstrapped company, the risk always just felt like it was a bit too high for me. I always felt that one misstep or an unsuccessful event had the potential to really undo all the hard work that we've done over the last decade to create such a vibrant online procurement community. It really made me nervous while I saw the opportunity to do so. But sometimes you need just the right push or show of support to step out of your comfort zone and do something you know will bring so much value to so many people, even if it's a bit daunting at first. And I got that much needed push last year from one of our closest partners here at Art of Procurement, the team at Zip. When they asked about our 2025 event plans, I shared my hesitation. They immediately stepped up as a presenting sponsor, and soon after, 2 more of our close partners joined in, giving us the confidence to move forward. And with that, Catalyst LA was born. But here's what makes Catalyst LA different from other procurement conferences or events. Now, for one day on May the 6th in Los Angeles in California, we're bringing no more than 100 procurement executives, C-suite leaders, and service providers together for an intensive day of sharing, strategizing, and supporting each other. We're going to have real conversations about real challenges that are facing procurement, and the event's carefully designed to empower procurement leaders with perspectives, vision, and tools they need to write the next chapter in their organization's procurement journey. We're really intentional about creating experiences for those who are on the maturity journey of their procurement transformation to connect with those that have just been at that stage in the most recent kind of time frame, so that we can really connect folks with people who have been on that journey recently, rather than oftentimes you kind of see opportunities for content that may be a little bit out of your reach in terms of where you are in your maturity journey. So we want to really bring it together to make it more real for you and to provide a lot more actionable insights. So if you'd like to learn more about the event or request an invitation, please do feel free to reach out to me directly, or you can visit the event's website that I put in today's show notes. We're also going to keep on updating that website with details of new speakers, new facilitators, and the agenda itself.
5.
Understanding how to address skeptics, overcome objections, and communicate procurement's value will ultimately determine how much buy-in and resources procurement receives. This holds true whether you're building a business case to establish a new procurement function or lobbying corporate leadership in a well-established team. So in this week's Art of Procurement podcast episode, I talked with Pratik Patel, a long-time procurement leader at MasterCard, about the ways procurement can build a strong business case. In this short clip, Pratik shares his perspective on procurement's role and how they can best communicate with their most important stakeholders. Let's listen in. How do you think about procurement generally? I hear a lot about, in what you say, around total value and connecting with business. And as we talked about, getting out of the bubble. As you come into a role or a situation, what's your kind of mental model around the role that you can play as procurement?
Yeah, so you know what? After 20 plus years in procurement, part of our role has to be coaching and developing the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're only as good as the sum of our life experiences. And I always mention that because it is so true.
Yeah.
And it's our jobs to really lean in and help that next generation to hopefully think much more holistically, drive more optimization, more opportunities than what we could do today even.
Yeah.
And so that has to be one of our roles, is to pay it forward to help that next generation. Second is to really show the business how we are a strategic enabler. And that comes from first understanding our suppliers and their suppliers' capabilities, being a subject matter expert on what that supplier can bring. It comes from building the relationship with the business, where the business is open and willing to share what are their objectives that they're trying to achieve. How does that align with where their gaps are for what external spend can support? So having a true level of credibility and trust that is built both with the supply base and the business. That's the second piece that we have to do consistently in procurement. And then the third, I think, is bring a lens of risk
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that we are the first and last line of defense.
4.
I have a special announcement today that I'm really excited to share with everyone. In partnership with the team at Fine-Tune, and especially with the help of their CEO, Rich Ham, we've just this week launched a new podcast series called By the Way to Purposeful Procurement. And the first 3 episodes of the podcast are now live on the Art of Procurement website and in this Art of Procurement podcast feed. Now, this is unlike anything we've done at Art of Procurement. Hosted by myself, Kelly Barn, and Rich Ham, the podcast series will be a year-long project where we'll release a new episode every 2 weeks, all exploring one central question. What is procurement's highest and most important purpose, and what are the things that are holding us back from achieving that? We promise not to shy away from the hard conversations. In the first 2 episodes, we're tackling some uncomfortable truths about how procurement's traditional metrics and incentive structures might actually be working against us. But we're not just focusing on what's wrong. We want the series to help chart a path forward, away from some of these systemic flaws that all too often hamstring our potential for value creation. So we'll also be talking to procurement leaders, practitioners, and other leading voices in business to share their own inspiring stories and practical insights on where we are as a function and where we need to go to succeed, and the best ways to make that happen. We'd love to hear what you think about the new series, so feel free to reach out to me, Kelly, or Rich on LinkedIn with your thoughts or suggestions. We always want to know what you're thinking about the content we publish. And of course, please share the new episodes with anyone you think might enjoy it.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
An organization's annual procurement forecast really makes the headlines. But that's exactly what happened a few days ago when the US State Department quietly removed a line item from its 2025 procurement forecast that named Tesla as the vendor for $400 million in armored vehicles, drawing just as much attention to it, if not more, than when it was first added to the forecast last year. Now, what makes this particularly interesting for procurement professionals is the way that it unfolded. The forecast change was discovered through a comparison of 2 versions of the document where the item was modified from armored Tesla to the more generic armored electric vehicles. Even more intriguing from a procurement operations perspective is the fact that the original procurement forecast incorrectly listed the item under miscellaneous food manufacturing, an obvious misclassification. The timing of this modification, which comes amid growing attention on Tesla CEO Elon Musk's role as the head of the new Department of Government Efficiency, as well as the continued availability of both versions on the State Department's procurement forecasts, raising interesting and important questions about procurement transparency and the management of potential conflicts of interest in public sector sourcing.
2.
Last week, I attended the 2025 Cost-Centric Symposium here in Orlando and had a great time connecting with colleagues and friends. Now, while there were many great insights shared during the event, and I wanted to bring your attention to a particularly interesting takeaway that I was doing a panel with the Hackett Group. We're talking about the latest Finance and Procurement Key Issues report. Now, when you looked at the top 10 issues for procurement and the top 10 issues for finance leaders are overwhelmingly focused on cash flow as their top priority this year. But we still see a persistent disconnect between those on the top 10 list for finance and procurement, including cash flow, which didn't really show up on the top 10 list of procurement priorities. Now, it seems for me that it's really time for this historic rift to end. Procurement can really directly influence payment terms, inventory levels, and supplier financing programs. And we're literally sitting on one of the finance's biggest levers for cost savings. So why wouldn't we work more closely together on this? In my view, it's become clear that there's really no reason anymore for these functions to really be siloed or at odds with one another when it comes to priorities. And there really is a much stronger opportunity for us to work more closely together when we understand what the true priorities of our peers in different departments are. So if you haven't had a strategic conversation with your finance counterparts lately, you haven't talked about working capital and cash flow, I suggest it's time to start building that bridge. For procurement, finance, and the entire business is going to benefit from it.
1.
Finally, today I want to tell you about an exciting event we have coming up on March the 18th with Zip. I'll be hosting a live webinar with Sean Rhodes from Deloitte and Jason Moore from Zip as we talk about the findings of a fascinating new Harvard Business Review report called Procurement at a Crossroads, Evolve or Be Left Behind. We'll move the conversation beyond just identifying the typical factors that have held procurement back, like siloed workflows or outdated systems and processes, and instead, we're going to focus on how user experience first approaches can help procurement unlock new categories of value. Sean and Jason will be on hand to share their insights on how procurement can align technology with processes, how to drive real long-term adoption of procurement solutions, and how to achieve those next-level business outcomes we're all running towards. You can click on the link in today's show notes to register for the webinar.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.